Well, my body lies over the ocean. My body lies over the sea. Ooh, my body lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my body to me.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Scott Arizala Show presented by camphacker.tv. My name is Travis Allison and I'm super excited to be back with Scott. He's got a great show for us today. Welcome back, Scott.
Hi Travis, thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited for today. I wanted to sort of continue the conversation we started one of the previous episodes about counseling skills. There are so many things that I think we could learn or relearn as far as being great camp counselors, and one of them, and today's topic is about redirection and using redirection as an actual technique for working with kids. You know, as some of you watching may know, my daughter had some pretty significant health issues in the fall of 2013. And one of the sort of blessings to that is that I got to spend an amazing amount of time with her, both as a family and really one-on-one, whether that was in the hospital or at home. And it allowed me to explore my relationship with her in some really amazing ways. And part of the content for this particular episode comes from just frankly hanging out with her so much. One of the things that I noticed, she's got what she calls her sticker collection, as many 4-year-old kids, you know, anybody who has ever worked with 4 or 5-year-old kids before, you know, they love stickers, they put stickers everywhere, they, you know, stickers are just kind of one of those amazing arts and crafts kinds of supplies that you just can't get enough of. At any rate, Linnea is very much so the same. She loves her stickers, and she started what she called her sticker collection, which was basically just white pieces of paper, and each piece of paper only really had about 2 or 3 stickers on them, and she was just creating these little scenes based on either the particular, you know, set of stickers or whatever that she had. And I will tell you that over the course of those few months, there was so many times that we were bored. You know, you can only watch so many movies, you can only wait for so many doctors, you can only have so many conversations with nurses. And as everybody knows, when kids are bored, that's when a lot of bad behavior starts to kick in. And one thing that I noticed that she was doing is that she was actually redirecting herself back to what she called her sticker collection. And she would be right on the edge of just about to fall apart, just about to melt down for some reason, and she would say, oh, you know what, can I do my stickers? And she was able to sort of keep her composure for like 10 or 15 minutes, you know, based on that. And I picked up on that right away, and I started to use it as a technique to redirect her. She would ask a question, she would start to get frustrated. You could hear, you know, she's 4, so she's in that mode of, she'll describe something to you in like a really weird way that's not like the normal way to describe something, and you as the adult like don't actually even understand what she's saying, and you start asking her questions because you obviously don't understand, and she starts to like slide towards frustration in this really quick way. And so with a 4-year-old, you got to be really on top of redirection. I think with actually any age, you got to be really on top of it. But 4-year-olds maybe a little bit more pronounced. And anyways, we'd be in one of these moments. I could see her sliding towards this frustration, and I would say, "Hey, do you want to work on your sticker collection for a few minutes?" And we'd pull out this like huge, you know, this huge stack of papers. And all of her stickers, and she would work on it for a few minutes, kind of de-escalate, and we would be able to sort of pick up and move on. Now, of course, redirection is just a technique. It's not a silver bullet, so just like Linnea is at home, or just like your kids are at your camp, it's not going to work every time, and it certainly doesn't work every time. It's just one tool in your sort of arsenal of tools that you can use to try and help prevent kids and prevent bad behavior. And that's by definition, that's exactly what redirection is. It's a prevention strategy. Redirection doesn't work necessarily, or it's a lot harder for it to work after kids have started to screw around or make bad choices. This is a true prevention strategy when it comes to kids and dealing with some more negative kind of behaviors.
And I think, Scott, this picks up on something we've talked about in a previous show from this season, which is about noticing. So what you're saying is you're observing when she's getting close to a point where things could go negatively, and you are then pointing her towards something that is comforting or that has given her some strength in the past or has given her just a moment of calm in the past and takes her through that moment of stress and into something else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and that's the idea behind redirection. And there's some sort of really key components in doing that. It's not, maybe it was for me. It was sort of dumb luck, right? I saw her do it. I picked up on it. I'm totally sleep deprived and my emotions are shot. And so, yeah, for me in that moment, totally dumb luck. But there's an actual process underneath it that I think we can learn from, and we certainly can use as frontline staff at camp to really use this as a prevention strategy. And I think the very first component to this is you have to know your kids. You have to get to know them individually. And this can be really challenging for a lot of young people, right? Not only because it's new, that's hard by definition, but sometimes there's only one or two of you for the 10 kids in your group or 12 kids or 15 kids in your group. So it's difficult. If you're not at an overnight camp, if you're at a day camp, and you only have them for 6 or 8 hours a day, that can even be even more challenging. So I'm not saying this lightly, but I am saying that it's probably a kind of a baseline thing. You have to know your kids, and if you can get to know them, right, then it sort of feeds into the sort of second big component is you have to be sort of aware of their behavior. That's where I think you're right, Travis. Noticing really comes into play because you have to, in those moments, you have to know what's going on. You have to be watching. You have to be paying attention. And if you know your kids, you're going to start to get cues. Oh, I see Travis is starting to get bored. He's starting to fidget a little bit. Boom. Here's where I have to sort of enter, refocus, redirect his focus or his attention and move him in a different direction. So because I know when Travis gets bored, he kind of unravels a little bit and starts to, be disruptive in the group or whatever the case may be. But without knowing him first, without knowing that kid, and without then being aware of what you're seeing in the moment, redirection is a really hard skill to use, right? Because those are the components that really help you catch the behavior or catch the camper in the moment before the behavior slips.
Once, so you're catching that, Scott. You're aware of them. You're seeing that something's about to happen, and you're ready to go. How do you get their attention back? What do you do to refocus them?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of different techniques here, right? And some of the ones that are like tried and true that we've all heard of, like when it comes to getting the attention of the whole group, right? Clap once if you can hear me, or some sort of call and respond. We've seen a lot of really creative camp counselors use particular games. A game like Stand By Me, where you're creating sort of a body sculpture, or starting and stopping games of telephone, things like that. There's a lot of really creative ways to get the whole group's attention, and those are excellent ideas to have prepared to be able to get people's attention and get it quickly. The other thing that you need to do is to be able to get individuals' attention, right? And what I desperately want from every camp counselor that's watching this, and really every camp counselor out there, is for you all to not sound like the typical adult when you're doing this. Because what do typical adults sound like when they're trying to get an individual's attention, right? They call their name, they kind of look pissed off at them, like their face looks mad, and they give one of those like knowing looks, like I know you're about to mess up, and no kid wants to wants the assumption to be they're not going to do the right thing from the beginning, right? And so creating or having some skills around being able to get their individual attention. And again, I've seen really creative counselors do different things. I've seen counselors that have a particular kid that they know often has trouble staying focused for a whole period, and they'll do like a one-on-one signal just between the two of them, like some sort of a look or a word, or they'll do some sort of creative high five or fist bump or whatever that really gets their attention in that moment to then say, okay, here's how we can sort of steer the ship in a different direction. And then once you've been able to do that, once you've been able to know these kids, so you know which ones are gonna, you know, of your group of 5 or your group of 10, these 8 are going to have no problem when we get to sports and rec doing the thing the whole time. There, maybe 1 or 2 of them will, because they have, you know, they are not having the best day or whatever. But for the most part, you know, then you know these other 2, right? This is where your issue is going to come in. This one is going to be in the first 15 minutes. This one's going to be in the last 15 minutes, so on and so forth. But you know your kids, right? You're aware. You're paying attention. You're watching what's going on. You're paying attention to the person who's doing the delivering the expectations and the rules and the instructions for the particular period. So you're watching what's going on and you're seeing all this. And then you know in those moments how to get the attention of the whole group or how to get the attention of that individual kid. And then you got to have some good ideas. You really got to be able to say, okay, here's what we can now do. Once I saw this brilliant camp counselor, he had 8 and 9-year-olds, right? And trying to get 8 and 9-year-olds from going one activity to the next. I mean, it might as well be herding cats. I mean, it's one of the most difficult things you can do to get everybody to go there, right? And those counselors that are super rigid about it, want them to walk in a straight line and whatever, those are the ones that are like never happy, super crazy, whatever. However, I saw a counselor, one of my counselors, who was really kind of losing control of the group. Not that he was trying to get them to be all together or walk in a straight line, but literally kind of kids were kind of moving in all different directions, and I wasn't even clear from watching it that they were all actually going from one area to the next. At any rate, he knew this stuff really well. He knew his kids really well. He was paying attention to what was going on in that moment. And he stopped everybody by using this sort of almost a cat call. I mean, it was almost like sort of like a call and response that he had worked out with his group that was really fun for them. And he said, all right, guys, we are still headed to the art barn. And they had to cross basically 2 kind of different fields to get there. And he said, we're going to play shoe golf to get there. And he basically like pushed his shoe off of his foot just so his shoe was kind of like hanging on his toe. And he said, okay, that tree is par 3. And he like whipped his shoe like halfway between where they were and that tree. And every kid did the same thing. And basically, I mean, you know, for those of you who've got like hardcore shoe policies, probably shouldn't do this game. But for everybody else, it was a super fun game. And for those kids, what did it do? It refocused them. How, though? Because it was a really fun idea. And to be honest, shoe golf, it's great for 8 and 9-year-old kids, but what if you're trying to get what if you're trying to redirect the 15 and 16-year-olds? Are they going to play a game of shoe golf? Maybe some of them might, and at your camp that those kids might be more into shoe golf than the 8 and 9-year-olds. So, but the idea is that you've got to have some really good ideas in place to be able to redirect this energy into doing something, not just not doing the other thing. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that I think people make in general when it comes to working with kids and dealing with some not great behavior, is that we oftentimes stop at the, well, don't do that other thing, or stop doing that, as opposed to being really good at redirection and talking preemptively about what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. And you know, Scott, that for me, I see that all the time. That's the difference between a counselor who yells all the time and a counselor who doesn't, is those who are able to redirect and give the kids something to do with their energy, instead of those who just say, stop it. I told you to stop it. Stop that. You stop that.
Totally. And you know, I think that one of the best examples of that is when I was growing up as a camp counselor, we used to, at my camp, there was 2 different places sort of on the road when you're going from kind of the lower part of camp to the upper part of camp, and then down at the canoe launch where there was lots of rocks. And as you know, anytime you get particularly, 10 and under kids, boys or girls, around rocks, what do? They throw rocks. And of course, every camp on the planet, it's not okay to throw rocks. And so one of the things that we did is in both places, we actually had what we used to call a hit that thing stage, right? Where we would go to the stage, which was, like a line somebody drew, right? And everyone would pick up a rock, and we would sort of focus everybody's attention to the direction where there weren't any other people, so like into the woods or into the lake or whatever, down the shore. And what we would do is we'd say, okay, hit that thing, right? And it would literally be like who could hit the tree first, or who could hit the big leaf hanging off first, or whatever. But we would actually like get them to do the thing that they're not supposed to do in a way we wanted them to do it, so they could express that energy, so that we could move on to the next thing.
Right on. Well, those are some great tips and tricks for redirecting your camper, Scott. Thank you very much. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's been watching. I hope that you'll subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you have any comments, leave them in YouTube. Or if you found this on either of our blogs, you can let us know in the comments there. Any other topics you want Scott to cover from his presentations that you've seen him at, etc. You can find the stuff in two places. You can find it on camphacker.tv and thecampcounselor.com.
Yes, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next summer.
Well, my body